Hello and welcome to this, our final episode of Cut Through the Noise for 2025. Cut Through the Noise is the podcast that helps business leaders increase sales through elevated communications and marketing. I'm your host, Aisling O'Rourke, founder of The Communications Coach. We are a communications and media coaching business based here in the Republic of Ireland, and you are very welcome to this week's episode of Cut Through the Noise. Throughout the past season, we have been looking at artificial intelligence. It's something that has been, discussed ad nauseum over recent years. But I wanted to look at how AI can help or hinder our communications and marketing in a business sense. There are so many tools and options out there that I thought it was worth dedicating an entire season just to look at it from an overall perspective. Now, ordinarily in the final episode of each season, I look back over the highlights of each episode and each conversation. And I will do that today, but I also want to take a moment to reflect on the year that was 2025. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, put the headphones in and take the dog out for a walk. However you enjoy Cut Through the Noise, I hope that you enjoy this episode. Over the course of the past 6 episodes, we've focused in on AI, and I have shared how I use it on a day-to-day business. Now, long before any of us had heard of ChatGPT, Gemini or Claude, I was already relying on AI in my daily life. I'm type 1 diabetic, and my insulin pump and continuous glucose monitoring system have used AI for many years to track and respond to changes in my blood glucose levels. And since 2022, that AI has been, really upscaled, and it now manages my insulin dosage 24/7, 365 days a year. I use what is referred to as a hybrid closed loop system. It's not a replacement for a functioning pancreas, but it's amazing. And I am living proof of the health benefits that responsible artificial intelligence can offer. However, that does not mean I'm suggesting that every person on the planet should start using AI or that I'm a cheerleader for any of these companies in particular. It simply means that I can see and feel and understand the benefits of AI because I have physically felt them on a daily basis. And that's why I'm so passionate about learning about AI and what it might be able to help us do in our business. Throughout the series, as is always here on Cut Through the Noise, we're very lucky to have some amazing speakers join us in each season of the podcast. We began with Liz Hardwick, who brought us through the basics and highlighted the importance of having strong systems in place for our businesses. And as Liz put it, it doesn't matter how much money we spend on the likes of ChatGPT or Claude or any other AI platform if the foundation of the business isn't at first solid. Her focus in her episode was on productivity, and that was deliberate because the fundamentals still matter. Yes, AI can help us become more productive, but only if we have the right foundations and systems in place to begin with.
What's the best thing to do is, if you can, a good place to start is actually record what you're doing in any given week. So if you can review your whole week, if you can break it down into like each hour. So, right, okay, 10 a.m. I looked at my emails. 11 a.m. I had a project meeting. And if you can break it down that way, you're getting the data to better understand where your time is spent. And then those almost like quick wins, really. So your example there with the emails, if that is something that is wasting you a lot of time, that you think, oh, my time could be better else spent doing that. And also where you said there that significant bit about potentially missing out on the important things, then that to me would be quite a high priority task to review and say, right, how do we do that? How do we make that simple? It might not be AI. There's kind of 3 elements that I talk about. One's automation, which is actually automating a step. One's integration, where actually 2 bits of software talk to each other. And the third one is template. Now, we've sort of forgotten about this, but especially in the email world, it might just need to speed up some of your processes. It doesn't need any extra tech. It just needs you to create a few templated items.
Next up, I spoke with Julie Creffield, and Julie spoke to me about how she has used AI in her business, not only to streamline her work and promote what she does, but she even used it to create an app that now supports her day-to-day client engagement. And I thought it was a great example of these tools and what we can create when we use AI with intention.
I like to bring things right back to basics. I have this thing called icks, slicks, and triggers, right? What are the icks in my life, in my business, and how can I make them more of a slick? How can I make them smoother? How can I make them easier? How can I make them more joyful? And what are those triggers? What are those emotional triggers, the fear, the joy that gets in the way of putting new things in place? You know, so often we go down these rabbit holes of tech, thinking that the tech will save us. Sometimes we don't even know what we want the tech to do. We don't know what's not working in our business. And so if we figure out what's not working, it means we're not always reinventing the wheel. I think it's more smaller innovations, smaller hacks, smaller ways of working that actually we see more results. It's those kind of incremental changes that we can make on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes that's just a post-it note.
I also wanted to make a particular point in this series to talk about safety and security from a business perspective when we're using AI. So I was delighted to be joined by Elaine Burke of the For Tech's Sake podcast. Elaine walked us through the security measures that we should all be mindful of when using AI. Like, at the end of the day, these tools are wonderful, but we are sharing an awful lot of information with these platforms, sometimes without thinking twice. So Elaine reminded us that it is important to protect ourselves and avoid being naive about our data.
The kind of things that people are sensitive about when it comes to their data aren't necessarily the things that are protected when it comes to data. And I do remember back in the day, there used to be an online joke of like a medical alert bracelet, but it had delete my internet history instead of a medical alert device on it. Because like when you think about it, your entire internet history, your search history could tell certain things about you that are things that you don't think of as being an open secret, so to speak. But that is information that you are sharing with Google, with your search provider, each time, and sometimes you're logged in on an account and that's attached to your account and that's part of your digital footprint. And as these tools are becoming something like a search tool for people, it can be for some people a first port of call where they go to with queries. It's again one of those things that it happens, they see it as a functional tool, but maybe aren't thinking of that data being collected, being gathered up under their profile, and what that might become.
And a conversation I really and particularly enjoyed this season was with Nicola Hamilton Fox. Nicola is a cyber psychologist and a fascinating guest. Nicola explored the impact that AI is having on our critical thinking skills. And while it can help us create copy and visuals and video and now even music, and we all have very strong opinions about that, myself included, we have to be careful that we don't hand over our critical thinking or creative thinking skills to these tools, because without intending on it, we can dumb ourselves down. We must remain curious and question what is being generated and ensure that we do not slide into complacency. Here's what Nicola had to say.
Your brain is a muscle. You have to keep using it or else it stops working as well. We're in very early days of the research, very early days. So I don't want to scaremonger by any means. And there's quite mixed results about using ChatGPT and creativity and critical thinking. But there are some studies that have found that when you use ChatGPT, particularly for more creative stuff, that it reduces your ability to do that afterwards yourself, because you start just forgetting to think that way. You know, creativity, again, it needs to be practiced all the time. And with critical thinking, you need to be practicing it all the time. And I am amazed at how many people are using ChatGPT like as if it's a search engine, because it is absolutely not a search engine. It generates, right? It doesn't just find and bring you back information. It generates information, and it absolutely hallucinates, and it absolutely makes things up. And when people just take it as a given, when they see that information, they go, well, that must be true, because it the way that you interact with it is quite social. It creates a feeling of like social presence, which can make it feel more personalized, more like you've got a relationship almost with it. And the immediacy of it can actually make it feel like it's very personalized, tailored to us. The specific answer is designed exactly for us. And that's being very transparent. But that is absolutely not true. That's just the way that it's designed to talk to us. And so people are more readily believing a lot of the information from it.
I'd also like to encourage you to check out Nicola's podcast, In Bits. Finally, we heard from Tom Hewitson. Now, Tom travels the globe delivering training on artificial intelligence. Through his work, he helps businesses understand how AI and systems can support scale. He's a wealth of experience, and I'd encourage you to revisit his episode in particular if you haven't heard it already. I found Tom's insights particularly valuable.
One of my favorite things to say is that AI doesn't feel things, okay? Because it doesn't actually have the right mechanics to do so. It doesn't have hormones, whatever else, we are building with AI systems. We don't have all those kind of chemicals flowing around that are essential for causing feelings. And it is very hard for an AI to make somebody else feel something if it doesn't know what that feels like for itself. I mean, I believe this is why AI will always be at best a pedestrian writer, because it can never feel the kind of the hairs raise on its arm, or, the kind of, that like chill as you kind of read something that really moves you, because it doesn't have any of the kind of equipment required to feel those things. And so I think that the role of humans is going to remain incredibly important as the kind of the arbitrators of feelings, if nothing else. I mean, I believe that there is more to what humans bring than just that, but that alone should make everyone who works in marketing and communications feel pretty safe and secure, because a big part of marketing is controlling how people feel about a brand.
And now we've come to the final episode of Cut Through the Noise for this particular season and for the year that was 2025. I want to take a moment to, catch our breath, metaphorically speaking, and reflect on the year that we have lived through. Let's be honest about it, 2025 has been particularly challenging for people across the globe. Global uncertainty has played a significant role in our lives and has made doing business more complex. I am politically active. I'm very interested in politics, but this is not a politics podcast, so I'm deliberately not going that path. But I can't ignore that global events have influenced how we work. And they've pushed us to be perhaps more creative, more strategic, and at times more frugal. And for many people, 2025 has felt overwhelming. And I wanted to acknowledge that as I wrap up the podcast for the year. At the same time, as we move towards a new year, it's important to pause and recognise your successes, because while it has been an overwhelming year in many ways, you have made achievements that you should be proud of. And those small wins that have been accumulated over time, the moments where you exceeded your own expectations, it's really important that you take a moment to reflect on them, as well as the challenges that you have faced this year. It feels to me like 2025 has been a year that's been like, I feel like I've been on a high-speed train throughout the year, and I haven't myself taken a step back to assess my own business. I've been busy working in the business and perhaps not as much as I should have been on the business. So I know in the first quarter of 2026, that's exactly what I am choosing to do. And I'm encouraging you to do the same. It's important that you think about the projects that felt heavy, the ideas that stalled, the situations that tested your resilience. This honest review helps you understand what worked, what didn't, and why. And you see, the growth is in the why. At this time of year, we're often so very busy that we forget to make the time to sit back and reflect on the year. But I believe that this period of reflection is fundamental to growth, both personally and professionally. We must allow ourselves the time and space to really assess the past 12 months and appreciate all we have accomplished in spite of those challenges. Now, when I'm doing this, I like to use something called the Gibbs reflective cycle. It's something that I learned about when I went back to university to learn how to work with and teach adults. I find it brings clarity to what can feel like an unstructured exercise. I use this exercise regularly. I attempt to do it at least once a week, if not once a month. And it breaks things down into 6 steps. So first things first, you describe the year that was, the business that you're in. You then move on to the feeling section and you think about how you feel you've done over the past year, in all honesty. But then you get into the nitty gritty and you start evaluating how you've done over the past year. And based on that evaluation, you can analyze it and then come to some conclusions. And based on all of those conclusions, you can start putting an action plan in place that you will implement in the new year. I'm not expecting you to implement it before the year is out. I just think it's really important before you sign off for 2025, that you get all of this out of your head, sit it down, move through the 6 steps, the description, feelings, evaluation, analysis, conclusion, and your action plan. So that then in the new year, you can sit down and go, right, you know what? Despite everything, 2025 was an okay year. Or maybe it was a terrible year, but you want to do better in 2026. Whatever comes up. And then what can I learn from it? How can I do things differently? Or what worked really well, so I'm definitely not changing this year. It gives you a chance to start the new year with an element of momentum. It helps you capture the facts and not your assumptions. Check in with emotional responses, which do have a big role to play in how we run our businesses, and identify the lessons that we can take into the new year. So I really would encourage you to do this simple brain dump, essentially, within the structure of the Gibbs reflective cycle. Get everything out of your head and onto paper or digital paper, however you best. And then bring that with you into 2026 to help you spot opportunities, to create new habits, and to really learn from the challenges that this year has given you. It gives you a place to start from a communications and marketing perspective for 2026. And it helps you begin the year with intention and clarity on how you want to run your business going forward. Thank you for joining me for season 10 of Cut Through the Noise. I hope this series has given you insights, reassurance, and practical understanding of AI in particular. And I hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed Cut Through the Noise over the past 12 months. We will be back to bring you more conversations, tools, and guidance in 2026. But if you'd like some individual and one-to-one support, please do drop me a line. hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie. I offer communications and media coaching to business leaders, and I also run the Clarity Collective, communications mastermind for leaders in business. Get in contact with me if I can be of any assistance to you and your team in 2026. Until then, take care. I hope you get to enjoy some well-earned rest. And I look forward to helping you communicate with clarity, confidence, and authenticity in 2026. Remember, they are the key to stepping out from that sea of sameness and cutting through the noise in the year ahead.